Okay, we got to the very end of the chapter in Korea, which is, do you have one? Do you want a Hebrew? Oh, okay. I have page, Sani base. Oh no, this one didn't go up this. I have the other one. I don't have this one in Hebrew. Okay, so we got to the very end of chapter in Korea and bottom of 169 in English. And the Sefer, so Shearim Be'Tefila writes, regarding this notion that God is the Rofei Yisrael, means he's the healer of Israel. There's a fundamental difference between God and a Rofei Basar V'Dam, and a healer that is flesh and blood. And in respect to Basar V'Dam, and when it comes to Basar V'Dam, I don't know. When it comes to Basar V'Dam, if it's a great expert, who's a doctor, a specialist in some area, it's very hard to get an appointment with such a doctor. No one's ever tried to get in with the best of something, so it's very hard to get in. It's someone who probably is very busy with their time, with their strengths. And they can't deal with all the sick people in one shot. Vigam Rov Yomo, and most of his days, Asuku Binyane Chayatzmo. He's engaged in the life of his own of Binyane Chayatzmo. The only way to get an appointment would be paying a lot of money and a great deal of effort of trying to arrange an appointment. So that's the difference between Rofei Basar V'Dam versus a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu, if you get an appointment with him, Enoken. Elaponim Elav, Yisparach Yashar, you get an appointment right away with God. It's not difficult. Who Yisparach Oneh, and then of course he responds, Umerab Hamiyad, and can heal right away. But when it comes to payment, there's a difference. Amrullah Chazal say to us, Kirofei Chinam Ata, you are the free doctor, you don't charge. As whenever I try to render religious services, mitzvahs, weddings, whatever this, so it's part of what I do. I don't charge. Someone gives a donation, whatever they want to do a donation, they can do a donation, but I don't charge. The reason I don't charge is very simple. It's because I don't want anyone to say that this is the way you should do it. You must do it this way. You must do it that way. Anyway, so we also there's a sense that then we're not doing it for L'Shem Shamayim. People sometimes write a check, sometimes they make a donation, but I try not to charge l'chachila for these things. So especially not funerals and things or the like. But when it comes to paying Kadosh Baruch Hu, Dafka the Chazal told us that Rofei Chinam Ata, you are the free doctor. You are the one who doesn't charge. You're Medicare for all, right? And how wondrous are these words? It doesn't make sense. Lama rak kan linyan refuah. Why is it just by healing that the emphasis in Chazal, in the Gemara and Brachos, is that God does not charge a fee for healing? Because the notion of him being free could be related to any request we have of God, right? If I'm looking for wisdom, if I'm looking for a certain amount of money that I need, so I could say God does it for no price. I don't have to put anything in, and that would be true. Everything He gives us a gift, and we don't ultimately deserve it or earn it. He's giving us a gift, and hopefully we can use for the right way, for the right purposes. But to emphasize that God is free, only in the context of refuah, is peculiar. So says the Shearim Be'Tefila, is he ever taking any payment? Is he taking payment when he gives us wisdom, when he gives us children, right? When he gives us parnasa? Mihak dimeni va'ashalem, the pasuk in Eov says, who will come before me and I will pay? Ma'ashiv Hashem kotag muleilai. What can we say this in Hallel. What can I return to God? What can I respond to God for all the chesed He's done to me? Ma'ashiv Hashem. How can I possibly repay Him? What is the price tag on the benevolence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu? Who is it out there who can possibly pay 1 in thousands of 1,000% of what we owe Him? of what he gave us. And if everything is ultimately a gift and we can't afford to pay for it, then the real question is, why was refuah singled out as the one item, as that one nakuda that we cannot afford? That God gives us for free. Everything God gives to us because He's Elokim. The fact that He's God, that's a free relationship. That's a relationship we don't pay for. That's one component. Aval habiur, shukodo knows shu bechinam. Elokim shita shelokim ze bechinam. Aval inyan refuah. When it comes to healing, Harei Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael ki ani Hashem rofecha. I am Hashem, your healer. What does that mean? Rofei kipshuto kol rofei ba'olam. I'm exactly like a doctor. I'm similar to a doctor, any doctor in the world. Harei darko shel rofei lakachat schar. That it is the. Oh, sorry. I don't know how long Daya was waiting. Just let her in. Apologize. Hi. I'm sorry, Daya. I don't know how long you were in the waiting room. So when it comes to Hashem, He is the Rofei, but the derech of a Rofei, the way of a doctor, is to take a sechar, to take a payment. And this is the additional point. Rofei zeh gadol. This Rofei is the gadol kivyochel marpeihu. He is the one who heals. Second, let me just turn the page. Bechinam. And we also say that he's faithful. That when it comes to the or trustworthy, when it comes to the nature of doctors in the Yeshua Siva Mar Bechinam, so let's say they're doing pro bono work, right? So they're not going to necessarily put in the same amount of time and attention and focus to someone who's actually paying them. So you give it for an attorney as well, right? That you're doing free work for someone as a chesed. It's good, but you'll make the time. It will be extra time. It's not going to be time that you're going to dedicate the same amount of energy as if you were being paid to do so, right? I think this is why officially various areas in Avodas HaKodesh you're not supposed to be paid, right? That was like probably the reason. We didn't want you saying, well, teach you the real stuff. Won't teach you the real stuff, right? It's supposed to be an endeavor that's not, or a mohel, for instance, right? Imagine someone doing a real mila for one and then kind of botching the job for someone else. Doesn't make sense. So when it comes to the rofei, normally a rofei chinam doesn't give the free the proper medicine over to everyone. Mamar Chazal, asya de magen shava, a medicine that it comes for nothing, a doctor that heals for nothing, it's worth nothing, right? Sometimes or the phrase we say in modern language is you get what you pay for, right? From page 171. But normally when it comes to refuah, if you get something free, probably not worth as much as what you would pay for. And this is the purpose of this is that you should be healed. Pashut lifnot elav yispar chas min labai. So this is, by the way, a classic. This is a classic, capitalist argument that the idea is that when I pay for something, I'm going to get that. I'm going to put in the effort because I'm being paid for it. Whereas if I provide it for free, ultimately, if everyone has it, then because human beings are by nature. This is Ayn Rand. Because human beings are by nature selfish, and by nature they want to accumulate as much wealth and things for themselves. And because of that, we need to manipulate that desire to help the maximum number of people. It's like kind of a twist of philosophy. So that's the way he sees the normal medical market. Is that the more you pay, the more you get paid, the more you're going to give someone in response. That's the rofei. That's the doctor aspect, is that he's healing. But the part that's chinam is the chiddush. That we know Hashem's telephone number. We don't have to pay anything. He's giving us this. He's giving us the executive suite, but he's not charging us, which is not usual, right? So that's where the loshon of rofei ne'eman comes from. That normally, unless you're paying a lot of money, you're not getting that kind of service. Baruch Hu, it's not true. So. This is the root of Israel when there's a sick person. Hashem Yishmerenu, God forbid, or may Hashem watch over us. Laharbos Be'Tefila, what do? We engage in abundant prayer. And we even stop everyone in their tracks. We give a clap on the bima. We stop everyone's learning Torah. We say, no, we have to say Tehillim right now. Right? Even if they're studying Torah. I remember in the base medrash one morning, it was September 11th, 2001, and I just got my bagel and my coffee from the shop across the street, and I walked in the base medrash, and there was something on the TV screen in the bagel shop, and I wasn't really paying attention. It seemed like there was a news story going on, something they showed the Twin Towers, right? Some still smoke, but I wasn't really. And then I walked to the base medrash, and they announced it. They got up, they clapped on the bima, and everyone just stopped, and we just sang Tehillim for the next half hour or so. It was a pretty jarring moment. I remember just someone was thinking, should we really stop learning Torah? Someone said that, and the mashgiach Ruchani gave him a real tongue lash. He said, I dare you say we shouldn't be davening now for this. This is what we should be doing. So he says that's the halacha. The halacha is that if you need to daven, you stop what you're doing. You interrupt every other mitzvah. I'm sorry. First he's saying Talmud Torah is greater, right? He says Talmud Torah is greater. But if there was a chola, you'd be chayav to do everything you could within nature to stop it, right? So he's not exactly arguing that you should stop and say Tehillim, but I observed that from YU. Anyway, but if you had someone who's a chola, you would have to go out of your way and you would have to stop what you're doing. Person who's sick, if you call a doctor, an ambulance, you can't do anything else. You must do that at that moment, even if it's Shabbos. That's why the Gemara says that if someone's going to mechal Shabbos to save a life, you should have the biggest Talmud Chacham do it to show that it's appropriate. You must do it. So he says, and one of the methods of hishtadlus that we must engage in is tefillah. Try our best to heal the sick person. And we have no concept of how far this notion goes. So let's finish up the chapter. This is not just true when it comes to healing. In every endeavor of prayer, it's the case. Because tefillah is what we call natural efforts. It's called putting in your koach. That's what it's derech. It's hishtadlus. Hishtadlus means I'm doing what I can. I'm doing what's in my yicholet. Hashem hears all the prayers. In Marshal, if you look at Marshal and Gemara Kiddushin, because of the Nes Haba, Yidei Tefillah, in Nikr Nes. It's very interesting. Let's say we daven, someone is not looking good. We get up and we say Tehillim. The next day you hear a miracle that the person survived. So is that a miracle or not? So the Maharshal Paskins, it's not an ace. That's teva. That's normal. It's like, if you had a headache and you took 3 ibuprofen. Nature is you'd probably get it, the headache would go away, right? That's teva. You wouldn't say it's a miracle. So the same thing is if you daven and someone gets better, someone say, oh, there was an ace. No, that was teva. You davened and you put in the right formula. That's the Maharshal's chiddush. They know menakim is yourself, and the nafkamina would be, we only get a certain number of miracles in this world. We're each afforded a certain number of freebies. So that doesn't take away from your freebies. When you say Mishaber, someone gets better, that's not like it's not God pulling an extra stop for you and you're taking away from your olam haba. That's normal. Because he says the reason behind the Maharsha is because that is natural. I'll finish up the chapter here. Yadua mash misaprim, it's known that which we tell over Chazal in Esther Rabbah. Esther Rabbah is the Medrash Rabbah on Esther. The history of Medrash Rabbah goes this. So we've all heard of Medrash Rabbah, right? You've heard of Medrash Rabbah, like Gracious Rabbah or Shmos Rabbah, all that stuff, right? So where does it come from? So there were the original generation of Midrashim were Midrashay Halacha. Things like Sifra, Sifri, Mechilta. These are like the most important Midrashim, of course, because they're the first generation of Tanayim. The authors of the Mishnah composed these. And what would happen was they would sit around the room and they'd say, well, nobody learns Tanakh, right? Right. Nobody learns Tanakh back then either. So one rabbi would say, well, here's a pasuk in Tanakh that's obscure and nobody says in Tehillim. And so say, okay, well, let's connect that to the pasuk in the Chumash in our parsha. And they would go and hold drush and they connect it. Someone throw in a mashal, whatever, a king and a servant, whatever, and they would weave together the medrash. Usually not the mashal though. Usually it was more interpretation. It was like and you shall surely heal. This is where we learn that a doctor has the permission from God to heal. So that's how the midrashim would work. Then they realized that they have always halachic midrashim on Shmos, Vayikra, Midbar, and Devarim, but there's very few halachas on Sefer Bereshis. In fact, we only have three laws that come out of Sefer Bereshis, right? And all the 600 others all come from Shmos through Devarim. But only 3 laws come out of all Chumash Bereshis. Chumash Bereshis is a lot of stories, a lot of narratives. It's the history of the Jewish people and humanity and the Jewish people. Only 3 laws. You have Bris Milah, you have Puravu, you have Gid Anosha. That's it, right? The rest all appears elsewhere. So what are we going to do? The rabbis felt with Bereshis. We don't have a medrash. So the next generation is the Amoraim. The Amoraim got up and they said, okay, we're going to make a medrash for Bereshis, and they call this Bereshis Rabbah. So what would they do? They would also they'd open up a medrash and they try to darshan. They do the same pattern. They try to darshan out Bereshis, but it was more of a less halachic and more philosophical. That's why people like learning the rabbis. Once they did that, they said, well, let's learn Shmos Rabbah. Let's do a Vayik Rabbah. Let's do a Midbar Rabbah. Let's do Devarim Rabbah. Once we have it all set up. Once they're on a roll, they included the 5 Megillos. So we have Esther Rabbah. So on Esther Rabbah, the Chazal tell us, which is also a parable, the person is tired, they're walking on their way, and they ask God, please send me a donkey because I'm tired of walking, right? Or you're walking, you need a car, you need an Uber. So what do you see in the end? He's walking and he sees in the end, he has to carry the donkey of a Roman noble on his shoulders because he just asked for a donkey. He didn't say what he wants with that donkey, right? So it says he asked for he had asked for a donkey to ride, but did not make it clear whether he should ride it or the donkey should ride him, right? So as a result, he gets a donkey to carry, which is only good if you need donkey meat or something like that. And I don't know. So it's a very.
We got the same one.
What do you mean?
I love it. My girls love that with the wishing stick. Yeah.
Oh, there was a story. This was in a PJ library book.
Yeah, it's like a Yemeni story.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Something in the wishing stick.
Right. There's one of my favorite classic kids books is the Pebble. What's it called? You know this for sure. Wishes on it's also a family of donkeys, I think it is. But he wishes on a pebble and he turns into a rock or something like that.
Yeah, we have that as like a kid's movie.
Magic Pebble, thank you.
Oh, see, that's why I pointed to you. He didn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is he the one who wrote Dr. DeSoto?
He did.
That's my favorite because we're a dentist family, right? Okay, so anyway, so in the end, he says he wished for a donkey and get a donkey, right? He didn't say whether he wants to ride the donkey or the donkey to ride him. Not community riding a donkey and donkey riding you would be Bilam. Bilam is driven by his donkey everywhere the donkey wants to go. He's steered. Whereas the Madrash points out that Avram Avinu and Moshe and others, they rode the donkey. What does that mean? They conquered Chamor. They conquered the Chumrius. They conquered the physicality. Whereas Bilam is conquered by the physicality. There's a beautiful Stas Emes on this. It says that sometimes you see these different. You see that you have a Bilam, you have a Moshe, and they almost look the same. The difference is whether your powers rule over you or you rule over your powers, right? Whether you control them or not. So same koach, but the only difference is who's gonna, who runs it. Chazal say that one of the 10 things created before the dawn of humanity was the donkey, right? The mouth of the donkey that spoke, and that has metaphysical properties. So I saw a medrash, I saw a commentary on that. There's actually a reference to this. It says it's the same donkey that Avram rode and Moshe rode, and the same donkey that Bilam was the same donkey. So how is that possible? Very simple. Tzaddikim know how to conquer it, know how to steer it. They know how to ride the donkey, whereas those who are not on that level, they may be exposed to great powers, but those powers ultimately corrupt you and rule over you. If you're given a lottery ticket, you win tons of money, most people will squander it, will waste it, will use it for all sorts of either useless or nefarious purposes. Comes to the few, the Chiti Skula, and they're afforded that money, they're using it all for good purposes. That's a rare occasion. Very rare. That's why most of us don't have that kind of money. Take care. I don't know what that is. But... Okay, so the Tamuach, he said, Tefillah, Zeus Kara. How could it be? The guy's davening. He's really putting in all his ishtadlus, and that's his schar. That's his reward. He gets to carry a donkey. There's another level of tefillah. Tefillah is a natural attempt, a natural effort. It's not a miraculous thing. Intervention. You have to be very careful with how you frame your words, what words you use. Sometimes people don't pronounce the Hebrew language properly, and they daven for the Almud is a big mistake. They end up saying the wrong thing. I have a lot of funny examples that I won't share here because I don't want to record it. People who meant to say something in tefillah end up saying something really inappropriate because they put the wrong vowels in. And I have a whole list I keep the covers of mine. It's a joke. But anyway, you have to be very careful how you frame your words, right? You don't know exactly if all the status never when call out the clear language, that's your natural effort. That anybody who darshans Hashem, those who seek Hashem will never stumble, and all who put in their trust will never be shamed. So with that, we finished the parak on Kriya. We're going to go on to the beginning of the next. The pool is throwing oneself down for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I think I have an extra Hebrew here. Anyone wants the Hebrew? I haven't made a copy if you want. Okay. Any questions before we go on? We're good. Okay. It's very hot, so we'll try to keep the words minimal. We'll try to end by 10 so people don't overheat here. Okay. And I will fall before Hashem. That's the pasuk. There's a lashon of, or I fell. It's actually a vav hipuch. Et napel is I will. The vav in chumash switches the tense. So when you have a past tense, the vav in chumash makes future. When you have a future word, sometimes et napel is I will fall before Hashem. But Moshe is describing the way he fell before Hashem. He cried out to God. So et napel, after the Chet HaEgel, I fell before God and I called out to him. And we learned to do Midas Rachim, Shem Shem Karachim Cham. Nipulhu tefila doma lamash nemar v'tosif Esther the deber lifnei hamelach v'kasha nimretzet v'tapel lifnei haragla v'kefch v'titchanen lo lahavir et rat Haman. That Esther fell before the king. She cried out and she beseeched Haman, beseeched Achashverosh on behalf of the Jewish people regarding the evil plot of Haman. It is a unique form of collapse of a prayer, so much so that one who does so, it earns its own category of the 10 or 13 categories of tefillah. It describes complete hisbatlos l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the notion that I am nothing before you. The only thing that exists in this room right now is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what you're doing when you're hitting apel. There's two elements. One is the unique form of prayer. And it's also the halacha kolelet, which is the collective element of all tefillos that are in this, they're in this regard. So the general halacha, all kinds of tefillos should be in this way, meaning, what does that mean? So, anava, hisbatlus, humility, submission before Hashem, hitsura, or self-negation, hitsura nechona shel mahus tefillah. So in general, this is, by the way, the prototype for all tefillah. If you want to, as if you're not here, right? You're mitbatel yourself, but it's also a specific mode of prayer, which we're going to go into now. So let's begin his batlus or nefila. Near lefiana estaiti. Near to lil mode ketzad derech tefila. If you want to know what is the way to daven, yilmod zos me'alachos patanos aniyim. Let's look at the halacha of gifts to the poor. Davar mistaver hu shekadosh baruch hu onel tefila shel adam k'fi halacha tzarich kol chayv lanot b'kashas ani. God answers us as if the way we have to answer a poor person. What does that mean? Zelos and Rambam. Rambam writes in Hilchos Matnos Aniyim, Perek Zayin, Lefi ma shechaser ani ata mitzav litain lo. That which the poor person is missing, you have to give him. So in other words, if someone was imein lo ksus, they don't have clothing, mechasmos, you give them clothing. Imein lo kli bayis, they don't have a chair in their house to sit on, you have to give them a chair. Kohen lo. All the great gamachs, all the great tzedakah organizations, they get into what people really need. It's not just about sort of general help. It's about figuring out precisely what is needed in that moment. You mean lo isha messiano? So if they're not married, you have to try to make a shidduch. Isha messianos alish, and if it's a woman, you try to find a man, right? Even if the person was poor, but when they were not poor, they used to have a chariot with a horse and a servant running before him as a sign of how wealthy he was. So that's the Gemara. And now he lost all his money. Torah says you have to provide what they're missing. So that would, by the way, never work in any of our system. You imagine someone who's once worth a ton of money. They were living in a mansion. They were living in a penthouse apartment in New York City, and now they lost everything. They're living on the street. So now to provide them with tzedakah, you have to give them get back in the penthouse again, right? So that potentially they're living better. I remember one time my grandmother used to hire someone to work, to work in the house once a week, and my parents were struggling to pay for tuition and whatever, and she drove up once in a Mercedes. So whatever. When you don't pay tuition, you don't pay tuition, you can put your money into a car. But the halacha would say that if you're accustomed to a certain level of treatment, you have to provide that. That's what you must provide. Provide that which they're missing. You have to find what's missing, not to make them wealthy. So that means that what? That means that you're not commanded to make them wealthy, but if they had wealth, that's what you have to get them because that's what they're missing. We'll just finish the last thought in the Rambam. A poor person who goes from door to door, page 174. Now he says, wait a minute. And when a person is going door to door, you don't have to give them a large gift, but rather a small gift would be fine. Popper asks, you shouldn't leave him impoverished and humiliated. Don't turn him back humiliated. So we have two aspects. Number one is you have to provide what someone's missing, find out what they're missing, and then we have this standard that even if what they're missing was a high level of treatment, you have to provide that. And you also, someone goes door to door, so you're not supposed to turn them down. Turning them down at all would be a mistake. Okay, so next time we're gonna pick up on this, and we're gonna continue with people, the halacha of how we seek God based on this mashal of the way an ani is treated when they approach us.
I got confused at first. I was like, oh, is this about other people